Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to No More News Live. I am your host, Adam Green. Thank you so much for joining me today, Monday, August 29th, 2022. This is the one many of you have been waiting for. I have been anticipating it for quite a while. Joining me, my guest tonight, is former Christian Charles Giuliani. He has a channel, Christendom. He also goes under the moniker Truth Hurts, and I have been watching a ton of his videos exposing the absurdities of religion, exposing Christianity as a Jewish psyop. I've never met him before, but he is already one of my favorite people on the planet for his great research and great commentary, scathing criticism of the gullible, deceived Christians and all the Abrahamic faiths. So happy to have you here. Welcome, Charles Giuliani. How you doing?
Yeah, happy to be here. I'm a fan of yours as well. As I was saying before the show, I've seen quite a few of your videos, and I'm so glad to see that there's somebody out there that's hitting this thing hard because, people like our good friend, Mr. Alex Jones, of course, who is obviously not a Christian. He just pretends to be to lure people in, and they fall for that. He's just interested in making fat wads of cash. Mm-hmm. So few people will ever touch this. So few people are even aware of it to begin with. But the few that are, they'll push that aside. I've actually had people tell me over the years, quite a few, that you focus too much on the Bible. Forget the Bible. But yet, over the years, those same people have come to me and said, I used to tell you to lay off of that subject, but now you were right. I realize it is important. It's a much deeper issue than I ever imagined. So that's cool when you see that happening.
I'm sure you probably get this one. Charles, could you just lay off of the Christians? Go back to exposing the Jews. Leave the Christians alone. Oh,
right.
How absurd is that?
Difference? Right, exactly. It's their number one deception, and it has been for centuries on end. Through proxy, they have already been ruling the world for thousands of years, the past 2,000 years, through the Vatican and even through Protestantism as well, but primarily the Vatican. That ruled over the kings and the emperors of Europe.
Takeover of the Roman Empire.
Yeah. That, to me, that is the ultimate fulfillment of the first century insurrectionist goal of taking over Rome. It didn't happen in the time frame they wanted, but they resorted to another tactic by infiltrating right from within Rome. It took them a few centuries. They finally did it. And they wound up ruling. The church had authority over all the emperors and the kings of Europe. Mm-hmm. No authority, no secular authority had any power over the Vatican. It was the other way around. They were in fear of their lives. They were afraid that their own people would overthrow them if they were excommunicated by the church. So they bow and acquiesced, even if they didn't like it. Of course, it turns out that a great many of those kings were part of the royal Jewish bloodline anyway. But nevertheless, Rome, or I should say the Jews through Rome, controlled Europe for almost 2,000 years. They're still controlling it now, but under a different umbrella. I'm sure the P2 Lodge, Freemasonry, infiltrated it. This is one of the things I focused on my shows quite a bit over the years. I call what's going on now the third Jewish faction. Originally, there were two factions. There was, the royal bloodline, which was the emperors and the kings of Europe. And then there was the priestly bloodline that ran the church. And the two of them pretty much worked together, although the church had more authority, right? Just like the priestly Messiah would have authority, and so the church would have authority over the kings, right? It worked for roughly 2,000 years. But in the meantime, a third Jewish faction came along, which the secret societies, right? Freemasonry et al. And they were getting fed up. They wanted the same goal, world domination. But they didn't like the way the church and the state was going about doing it because, there was a lot of things that were rising up. People were catching on to it. They figured this thing's it's gonna blow up. It's not gonna last. What we want to do, said the secret societies, is take over the world through the power of money. And the church, of course, and the royalty didn't like that. That's why you had, the Templars, right? The church and the French king got together, and they overthrew the Templars because they realized, hey, these guys are a threat to our power. They're trying to take over, our game here. And so they didn't destroy the Templars. They just went deep underground, and they broke up into several different factions, but all working together behind the scenes. You had the Rosicrucians and the Freemasonry. So that is what's going on today. It's these secret societies. The church now is gaining power again, but only because it's thoroughly infiltrated by Freemasonry. Not that it was ever good to begin with. It was always corrupt. But now it's this form of corruption that's controlling it, another Jewish faction. It took me a while to finally realize that, to put this whole thing together. It's always been Jews running the show, but it's different factions that were vying for power. And now, you look at the great revolutions, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the German revolutions of 1848, and of course the Russian Revolution. All of those revolutions were designed to take out the royal families. And in the meantime, they were infiltrating the church. The first deadly blow to Rome came in 1798 when Napoleon marched in and took Pope Pius VI captive, right? He actually died in captivity. No king had ever done that. No emperor had ever done that. And so that seriously diminished Rome's power right there. And then, of course, in the ensuing decades, its power diminished more and more until now we come to Vatican II in the mid-60s. And that was it. That's when the P2 Lodge completed the deal. They totally infiltrated the Vatican, which is pretty funny because the official policy of the Catholic Church is that no Catholic can be a Mason, right? That's still on paper. That's still their policy. But if you look at all the top-notch officials in Rome today, they're all members of the P2 Lodge. So anyway, I didn't mean to get off on that tangent, but
well, there's also the Converso Jesuits and the Rothschild loaning, lending to the Vatican. But I think Christianity, even from the very onset, was set up as a mystery religion with secrets. Like the parable with Jesus, where he says he tells the disciples that he speaks in parables to the multitude, and because he doesn't want them. Go ahead, finish it.
Yeah.
What was it?
He actually used the word mysteries, by the way, and so did Paul. Paul talked about his teachings being mysteries. It's a mystery religion, an esoteric religion. It has one meaning for one group and another meaning for another. And so most Christians today are falling for the pablum version. They're not realizing that the whole thing was all about politics. I've got reams of quotes from the early centuries from Roman officials calling out Christianity as nothing but a power grab. They pretend to talk, they talk about peace, but all they want is power. It's amazing. That's always what it's been about. And of course, it's been Jews behind the scenes, pulling the strings.
It was theological warfare. They couldn't win militarily, but their prophecies were to get all of the nations, all of the Goyim, to worship their God, not become Jews, but worship their God. And how did they accomplish that? Through Christianity and then later Islam. Right.
After Jesus' alleged resurrection, Peter asked him in the book of Acts, the first chapter, he says, "Lord, is the kingdom of heaven going to come now, or is it still down the line somewhere?" And Jesus said, "It is not for you to know the time or the season." What was this kingdom of God he was talking about? It's what the first century Jews were all anticipating, all hoping for, the setting up of the New World Order, the Jew World Order. They were hoping that a Messiah figure, Christians, of course, looked to Christ or Judas Christus or whoever he was. They were looking to, various different religious leaders who used religion as a cloak for their political aims. But they were hoping that this figure was going to arise, was going to not only kick Rome out of Jerusalem, take over Rome, they were going to overawe the empire and become an empire themselves. So that's what Peter was asking, and that's what that really means. Lord, is the kingdom of heaven? He's not talking about some nefarious kingdom out in the clouds. He's talking about setting up Judaism as the ruling power of the world. Lord, is the kingdom going to come now or later? So every time Jesus talked about the coming of the kingdom, John the Baptist talked about the coming of the kingdom, you know what? That same phrase is used again and again in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Their obsession with that term, the coming of the kingdom of God, that's what it meant. You look in the Old Testament, David talked about the coming the kingdom of God. He was referring to his own throne, right? And so since Christ was supposed to be a son of David, an inheritor of the Davidic line, he was supposed to be the new David. That's how it was supposed to be set up, either Christ or Judas Priestus, or one of these messianic figures. They didn't really care which one it was. Whatever one seemed to have the most power and influence, that's the one they would rally behind. But if he got caught and got crucified, the next one that came along, they'd rally behind him. You know what I'm saying? But that's what the whole insurrectionist movement was. And so did it succeed? Well, it looked like a failure, right? The Romans came in 70 AD, sacked Jerusalem. It looked like the whole thing went belly up. Oh, no, 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 no. No, it did succeed a few centuries later, but it did succeed when pagan Rome fell, and now it became papal Rome. That was the final outplay of the first century insurrectionist movement, which, you know, Jesus, quote unquote, was a big part of. The Jesus character, whether real or not. That's what the whole insurrectionist movement was. It was their first attempt at, well, not really their first attempt, but their first major attempt where they made the most headway toward world government. Of course, they tried it with ancient, in ancient Egypt. They tried it with Babylon. They tried it with the Assyrians, the Persians. They infiltrated all those world empires.
Well, Joseph in Egypt in the Genesis story, that is the model and the template for the Jesus myth. Jesus is the Messiah, son of Joseph. Joseph,
and you know what that story was? Yeah. They flavored it up a little bit, so it's not totally accurate history, but there's enough parallelism there that you can trace it back to what it really represents in real history. That was the beginning of the Hyksosian domination of Egypt. Joseph, he was the first Hyksos. And if you look at the story right in the book of Genesis, it's obvious he was a scoundrel. He was doing what Jews today are doing to this country and many other countries around the world, and what they've always done through history. He infiltrated the Egyptian government. He became a top advisor by wowing the king with his alleged magical powers of interpreting dreams. You know, they always got some little scheme. In the Middle Ages, they were physicians, right? They would wow kings with their so-called healing abilities. Look at Nostradamus. Most people just remember him for his so-called prophecies. He was a doctor. That's how he weaseled his way in and became popular with the kings of Europe with his fake healing tactics. But anyway, they would weasel their way in one way or another into the royal court, wow the king, and then the next thing you know, they're advising the king. And not that they come up with these ideas single-handedly. They talk with their other elite Jews, and they would scheme behind the scenes. And so he would come to the king and say, hey, we got a deal, a real good deal for you. This is what we're going to do. There's a famine coming. I think they staged that famine, but that's another story. Anyways, there was a famine, and he said, when the Egyptians come to us because they're starving to death, we'll tell them we want all their money. Then the next year, that's going to continue on for several years. Then we'll tell them we want their houses, and it's right there in Genesis.
Their livestock.
Yeah, and the next thing you know, it says the Egyptians were in great want. But Joseph and his family were living off the finest delicacies of Egypt. There's a papyrus from the Hyksosian period called the Epura papyrus, right? And this guy Epura is saying, I walk the streets of my own city and scarcely do I see anyone who speaks Egyptian anymore. Does that sound familiar?
Sounds familiar, yeah.
He says, there is no shortage in skilled craftsmen, and yet there are no jobs for them. Wow! It's the same old template, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. By the way, when they finally threw the Hyksos out, it took about 200 years for the Egyptians to finally rise up, muster up enough of a force, and they threw them out. And when they sent them back from whence they came, you know where they sent them? Shalem, the ancient name for Jerusalem. They were Jews. Absolutely.
So you believe the theory of the Hyksos are the real Exodus story?
Yeah. Oh yeah. When they threw them out, it wasn't because they were enslaved. See how they always twist things so they become the victim, right? That is, again, the Bible always twists and adds a bunch of sugar and spice and everything not nice. But that is the basis of that. That's the real story behind it. It's the Hyksos expulsion, no question about it.
Why don't we back up a second? Just so I wanted to discuss your history as a Christian, how you were a Bible-believing Christian. You were raised in a Christian family like I was, and how you eventually came to see that it wasn't just not true, but it was a lie and like an intentional deception, like an ancient 2,000-year-old Psyop. Right. Can you explain that for us?
It was a very slow process. And you know what? It's a good thing it was, because if I was confronted with everything I know now all at once, I probably would have ran in the other direction. I would have thought, oh no, this guy's of the devil. I wouldn't have listened to. I've often fantasized of having the ability to go back in time and meet my former self as a believer and have a debate with myself, and how that would have gone over, knowing what I know now. And back then I thought I had all the answers. I was the Bible answer man, How would that have turned out? I don't know. I'd be curious. But anyways, it's good that it went the way that it did. In piecemeal fashion, the truth came to me. I first found out about the government being corrupt. I heard about the New World Order. I read Gary Allen's None Dare Call It Conspiracy. That was my first step toward my awakening,
Just like Alex Jones.
Yeah. And then over the next several years, I was working as a lay pastor for 4 years. And then everybody was encouraging me, hey, you should really go into the ministry full time. And so a number of things happened. I lost the job that I was working at, and I thought, well, maybe this is a sign from God, that I should go into the ministry. So I did. I enrolled, and now I worked as a student pastor for the next 4 years. So I had a total of 8 years. I was never officially ordained, whatever that means.
What was your view on the Jews back then, when you were a believer?
I did not believe that they were the chosen people. The church I was a part of actually historically said that when they crucified Christ, they cut themselves off as the chosen people. Not that a Jew couldn't become part of the chosen people, but they would have to accept Christ, So I wasn't big on Israel. Israel meant nothing to me. It was just a secular, corrupt country like any other. But I didn't see Jews as a problem either. You know what I mean? I didn't see them as the evil control freaks that they are. That didn't come until about the year 2000. By that time, I had already left organized religion. I saw the corruption, and I was so disgusted with it. I was done with it. I didn't give up the Bible, though. I still continued to believe in the Bible for another 11 years. But anyway, I discovered Zionism and their role in the New World Order. But again, to me, it was just a faction. It wasn't Judaism itself that was the problem. It was just these evil elitist Jews. It took me, over the next 7-8 years or so before I finally realized that this problem didn't just emerge with Theodore Herzl. It goes back. And so once I realized that, hey, they've been at this a long time, I started looking back in the Middle Ages and how they got expelled from different, pretty much every country at one time or other, multiple times from several countries. Suddenly I began to ask, gee, I wonder, these are the people that brought us the Bible. I wonder, could it be possible? Because by that time I had seen enough corruption in organized religion, and a number of things went wrong in my life, and God wasn't doing anything, in spite of all the praying I was doing. So I was pretty disgusted with the God of the Bible and his inactivity in my life, So I was open now to look at the Bible skeptically. That's all it takes. That's all it takes is for someone to take the initiative to look at it skeptically. That's the only barrier preventing people from seeing what it is. If they would actually do that, they would be able to see that the thing is a massive and monstrous fraud. The God of the Bible is not the embodiment of righteousness and holiness. He's the embodiment of everything vile, evil, and detestable. He's the devil himself, if you ask me. If there is a devil, his name is Yahweh. He is literally Satan himself, pure evil.
And you notice Christianity, especially conspiracies online, anti-New World Order stuff, it's always the Luciferians and the Satanists are the bad guys. When that's your paradigm, right, you're stuck in the Jewish paradigm where, well, if Satan's the bad guy, that makes Yahweh and the son of Yahweh, the king of the Jews, the good guy. So you're stuck in the Jewish paradigm.
I've often said this, but I have to be careful who I say it in front of, because Christians will take that and run with it, and they'll use it to condemn you as a devil worshiper.
Right.
But I've often said, if the Yahweh, I'll take the devil. People should know what I mean when I say that, but no, they look for any excuse. See, he's of the devil. He just said he would take. Yahweh is the devil, and once you realize he's the devil, hey, I'll take the opposite of whatever that is. The devil character is pretty interesting in the Bible because he's only mentioned a few times in the Old Testament. And when he is, no details are provided as to who he is, where he came from, what his role is supposed to be. You don't find that until the New Testament. Right there we got a big problem. If this is supposed to be God's message book for mankind, why is it for the first 1,500 years that the thing existed, if it in fact did exist that long? That's the time we're told it existed, supposedly 1500 years BC is when Moses started writing the Torah, but it looks like it was actually probably all written about 500 BC. But nevertheless, why would this God, if you go by the Christian narrative, it existed 1500 years BC, and the Jewish narrative, okay, fine, 1500 BC. Why did this God wait 1500 years to finally reveal who the devil character is supposed to actually be, right? Does it make any sense? For that matter, why did he wait till Moses to start revealing himself at all? What happened to all those previous generations? This God showed no interest in humanity until Moses came along? It's bonkers. And the fact that I used to believe it, I'm ashamed to admit it. I've always prided myself in looking under the rug and seeing what's under there, but I didn't do that with that friggin' book. That should have been the book I most subjected to scrutiny, and yet it was the last thing I looked at. I had already figured out governments were corrupt, big corporations were corrupt, the media was corrupted. Organized religion was the last pin to fall for me when it should have been the first. But anyway,
and Jesus or Satan actually works for God. God created him. He allows him to operate. He doesn't destroy him.
Right. I mean, the book of Job, they're striking a bet up. They're shaking hands. And what is this devil character doing up in heaven anyway? If you look at the book of Revelation, the only place we're told that the devil was cast out of heaven, right? There was war in heaven. It says that when he was thrown out and his angels were thrown out with him, it says, never was there place found for him anymore, right? Which means once he was thrown out, that was it. He was never to be allowed entrance there again, because heaven is a holy place and you can't have an unholy entity there. Well, when we come to the book of Job, we have a big problem, don't we? Because Job lived centuries, if not millennia, after the alleged time of the fall in Eden, which itself happened after the fall in heaven, right? So according to the book of Job, the devil is up in heaven by the throne of God, striking up a bet. What's he doing in heaven when the Bible says at the time he was thrown out, long before the time of Job, that there was no more place found for him there anymore? You see what I'm saying? The Bible has so many massive and major contradictions. Even as a Bible believer, I recognize that there were some problems, but I always thought that, well, they're not major, they're not doctrinal issues, so they don't really matter. Oh, no, there's not one doctrine in the Bible that doesn't have massive contradictions. The whole thing is just, it's just mayhem, absolute mayhem. By the way, if you were the devil and you had once been in heaven as a perfect angel, you knew Yahweh very well, right? You knew Yahweh better than humans are supposed to know him. Why would the devil even strike a bet up with Yahweh if he knew that Yahweh is omniscient and knows the future before it happens? You see what I'm saying? Why would he strike a bet up with God about the future outcome of whether Job would lose his faith if he has everything taken away from him, when he already knew that God was going to know the outcome of that friggin' bet? You know what I'm saying? Is that
And why would God even create the devil if he knows that the devil was going to rebel against him? And why does he allow the devil to rule over the earth also?
Yeah, but he's got a plan, Adam. He's got a plan.
Free will.
In the meantime, he's going to sit back as he munches on popcorn and watches the show play out, and watch young women get raped and little kids get abducted into child trafficking rings, and people get ripped off by the IRS with automatic weapons now, thanks to Mr. Biden. Jeez, man.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Jesus and God are just up in heaven looking down, just waiting to come down and finally save the day. It's so absurd.
Like what's that?
I said it's so absurd that anybody in this day and age could still believe these things.
It sounds like a nice fairy tale that we got this little magic genie. We can just rub our lamp and he'll come to our rescue at any minute. But what kind of a magic genie could it be when he supposedly is all-loving and all-powerful? Well, no.
And all these stories, what's more likely, that all these stories were made up by Jews, that Yahweh's made up by Jews and just coincidentally chose them, or that they're lying about all these things and have tricked the non-Jewish world into worshiping their God and believing in their fake prophecies and following their king, their Messiah that was meant all along to come and conquer the Gentiles? Well, Jesus accomplished that. Right. He's conquered the Gentiles. He's and he didn't come to bring peace, but a sword, and turn brother against brother and nation against nation.
Yeah. The night before his crucifixion, according to the gospel story, he sent his disciples out to go and get a sword. He says, if you don't have one, sell your cloak and buy one. Why? It doesn't explain why he did that. They come back and they said, Lord, this is all we could find. They had 2 swords. He says, That will do. That will do for what? What he was hoping, according to the story, right? If you interpret it in the context of the insurrectionist movement, what he was hoping for is that when they came to arrest him, he was hoping that it was just going to be a small group of people. He didn't anticipate it was going to be like 600 Roman soldiers. So that whole thing went belly up. But I think his plan was to set off. He just wanted a spark to set the thing off. And so if those two swords would have been enough, they could have overtaken the guards that came to arrest him, and then the people would see him riding into Jerusalem on a donkey again. Yes, this is the Messiah. This is the one. Everybody, because that was the Passover holiday season, right? So Jews had flooded into Jerusalem from all over the empire. There were tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Jews all in Jerusalem at that time. They had the Romans way outnumbered. You see what I'm saying? This is how he planned this. He was hoping that, okay, those two swords, that's enough. That's all we need. By the way, he told a parable, too, at that same time, just before his crucifixion, about how a certain man of noble birth went into a far country to establish a kingdom for himself and then to return. No Christian will argue that. He's talking about himself there, right? He came from he was of noble birth. He came from a faraway kingdom to establish a kingdom here, blah, blah, blah. But later in the parable, this is Luke 19, verse 27, Jesus has this character, which represents himself in the third person. He has this character telling his followers, go and bring those before me who won't bow and worship me as king and kill them in front of me. He actually said that the night before his crucifixion. Can you imagine that? The great Jesus, the Prince of Peace, the author of love and compassion. He told his disciples, don't just go out and find him and kill him. Bring him before me and kill him in front of me.
And that's what the Messiah in the second coming is going to come and smite the nations, and the whole world's going to have to bow down to the Jewish, the son of the Jewish God.
A sword shall come forth from his mouth, and in the book of Revelation describes this bloody scene, where he's taking vengeance. And
on the nations, it says too. That means on the goyim. And Christians have such a blind spot. They read these verses in the Old Testament and they'll say, "Oh, it says Israel's going to rule. Well, we're the real Israel, so that's about us." Or Jesus is going to come and destroy and conquer the Jews, is what some anti-Jewish Christians think. No, it says everywhere that it's the nations, the goyim, that are going to be destroyed.
Right. Here's one of the ultimate ironies. There's a lot of Christians out there who are, aware of the conspiracy for world government, whether they realize it's Jews or not, it doesn't matter. There's a great many Christians who know that we're headed for world government, and they're opposed to it, right? But what they don't realize is they're turning to the God of the Bible as the solution to this problem. In fact, they're sitting back waiting, thinking that he's going to come, the cavalry is going to come and save the world. That God, in their own book, is the one who inaugurated the whole New World Order system. Mm-hmm. He promised Israel over and over again, in the book of Isaiah especially, in the Psalms and a few other books, but mostly in Isaiah. It's loaded with passages like, I will bring all nations before you, meaning Israel. They will bow before you and lick the dust from the soles of your feet. Are you freaking kidding me? You can't get any more New World Order than that. You shall rule over the nations, but they shall not rule over you. Whoa, wow. They're following this playbook. I call it the 2,500-year-old protocols of the learned elders of Zion. That's the original protocols.
The protocols of the Old Testament, the protocols of the Torah. It's a blueprint for global enslavement.
And so Christians will condemn the Talmud. They'll recognize that that's evil. They'll condemn the Kabbalah or the Zohar. What they don't realize is those books are latecomers. Long before those books came along, you had the Old Testament, which laid the foundation that those other books have built off of. But the initial concept started with that book. The New World Order blueprint is right there. It's been there all along.
I say this all the time. You see Christians saying, this started where I would criticize, I would show verses in the Torah and show how rabbis interpret this, that they're going to rule over us or we're going to serve them or stuff like that. And the Christians would show up in the comments and go, oh, they're just misinterpreting that, Adam. They're not the real Jews. They're actually Edom. Right. Jesus wasn't a Jew. Those verses are about us. All of this nonsense that distracts away from the issue, that it's the Torah. It's an Abrahamic Torah Judeo conspiracy. And all these people, Alex Jones, oh, it's the New World Order, it's the globalist. Meanwhile, oh, everybody worship Jesus, and that's the answer. That is the New World Order.
And they praise Christ because he stood up against the scribes and Pharisees, right? But again, they're so short-sighted in their understanding. They have no idea what the issues were that were actually involved there. The scribes and Pharisees, I'm not any fan of them either, but they were trying to just keep the peace, right? Hey, Rome is letting us alone. We can have our worship service in our temple. They even built the temple for us. So their idea was leave well enough alone. But what the insurrectionists wanted, and we have to lump Christ into that, whether he was a real character or not, what he was trying to do was win them over. And when it was clear that he couldn't win them over to his insurrectionist cause to support it, then his goal was to have them taken out by the Romans. We're going to use the Romans to take you down first, and then we're going to infiltrate Rome, or take over Rome if we can. If not, we'll infiltrate it, and that's what wound up happening. Paul, of course, stepped in and played a big role in this. Why was Paul so adamant about reaching out to Gentiles? That wasn't something Christ was originally all about, Christ said, I came only for the lost sheep of the house of Israel, right? How is it that Paul now comes along and he's reaching out to Gentiles? Did you know that even the Christians in Jerusalem, Peter, James, John, the original followers of Christ, they were opposed to that. They didn't want any part of it. Peter was a classic Jewish supremacist. He wouldn't eat dinner in the company of Gentiles. He would only sit down and eat with fellow Jews. And you know the story where Paul publicly humiliated him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that would be. I just watched your video talking about this, but everything Paul said came before the Gospels, though, decades before the Gospels.
Oh yeah, right. You can see that Paul didn't even know anything about the virgin birth. He never mentioned it once. Mm-hmm. That was invented later. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Christ is said to be the son of David, right? But in the book of Matthew, Christ's lineage back to David is traced through Joseph. Well, Joseph wasn't even his freaking father in the first place. So why does it trace? Obviously, whoever wrote Matthew didn't even have the concept in his head of the virgin birth. That was
the original Matthew didn't even have an ending where Jesus was resurrected.
Right. Oh, Luke, Mark too. Mark is the shortest gospel. That thing's been tampered.
That's what I said, right? I meant Mark. The original ending of Mark was shorter, right, and ended with the woman running away from the tomb. And
that's it, an abrupt ending. Yeah. Also, there was another thing removed from Mark that we now know from other documents that were found later, original copies of the Gospel of Mark, where there was another version of the resurrection of Lazarus. The story of Lazarus, right, raising from the dead. Mm-hmm. It's only in the book of John, but originally it was in the book of Mark too. But when it was included in there, it was completely different from the record in John. It wasn't a literal resurrection from the dead. It was a spiritual ritual, if you will, where Christ was raising Lazarus from the spiritually dead. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the way I heard this explained was that it's interesting. Like the synoptic gospels don't even agree with John on why they wanted to kill Jesus. Because in John, it's because he raised Lazarus, but then that story's not even in the other gospels. So it's very contradictory.
In fact, John is in its own category. The other gospels are called the synoptic gospels because they're much more similar to each other. John has tons of stuff that isn't in the other three, and vice versa. The stuff in the other three that isn't in John. It's almost a completely different. But it doesn't matter because when you compare all four of them, even though the synoptics agree for the most part, there's still some whopping contradictions as you jump from. I always tell people, do this yourself. Don't you don't have to get my book and I lay it all out there and make it easier for you, but just do it yourself. Go through Matthew and write a list of events and then go to Mark and Luke and you'll see that each event happens totally different and they're not compatible. Christ is an infant in the book of Matthew at the time of Herod the Great. In the book of Luke, he's an infant at the time of Quirinius. Yeah. Quirinius came into power 10 years after Herod the Great died.
They don't agree on when he died. They can't agree on when he was born. And not to mention that Luke
showed up at the tomb.
Right. Luke and Matthew are just basically revisions of Mark, but they claim to be eyewitness accounts. It's all, and this is all decades after he supposedly lived and died, which is just pure nonsense. And this is the best. There's the Josephus isn't legitimate. Tacitus is nothing, and wait 60 years later. It's all such there's no good proof at all.
No corroboration of any of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about this verse from John? Go ahead.
You could understand the Old Testament. It's much older than the New, right? So you could understand that there would be some mistakes or whatever. But when it comes to the gospel, right, that's supposed to be the heart of the whole message. That's the focal point. You would think that an almighty God would see to it that at least that part of the Bible was uncorrupted, right? And yet we find more contradictions in the Gospels than in any other part of the Bible. There's more there than... What kind of a God who is supposed to have overseen, because Bible believers believe that, I used to believe it as a Bible believer, that God not only inspired the Bible, but he divinely preserved it so it would survive to our day. Well, he did a real sloppy job, didn't he? You can't place any faith in it once you see all these contradictions, not to mention the plagiarism and the inconsistencies with itself as well as with the historical record. It just goes on and on. You got in the book of Daniel, right? Nebuchadnezzar dies, and then it says his son Belshazzar took the throne immediately upon the death of Nebuchadnezzar. But we now know that there were 3 kings that reigned between Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar. Yeah. You know, it just goes on and on.
What I find funny about the Bible is that it doesn't have any like good, useful information. Like, doesn't teach you, you know, of any technology that they didn't have in the day. Another
cure
thing,
the common cold.
the arguments
Right.
that we hear from Christians nowadays to try to prove that God is real too, like they'll say, oh, there'd be no absolute truth without God, or no morals without God, or all these arguments. None of those are even in the Bible. So I guess it's such a great argument that it proves it, but they couldn't even put it in the Bible. It comes up pretty short there.
Even on the occasion when you have some things, you know, any religious book is going to have some good things, right? The Quran has a few nice things in there. That's what lures people in. But even on the occasion when it has nice things, they're plagiarized. It's stuff that was known long before Jesus himself, Paul, Peter, whatever. None of them said anything that was profound, that was unique. You know, I mean, this is supposed to be the God of the universe, the author of wisdom and knowledge. He didn't offer anything that's
couldn't even condemn slavery.
But unique.
They condone slavery.
Right. Oh, yeah.
In fact, they say be a slave to Christ. That's what Paul says. He's a slave to Christ.
Peter says, slaves, be obedient to your masters, even those that are harsh. So it not only endorses slavery, but it would have you let your master beat the living daylights out of you and you know, still be kind to him. Well,
yeah.
Wow.
How about this for a verse from John? We were mentioning John 18:36. Jesus answered, this is when he was getting apprehended, right, by the Romans. My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now is my kingdom not from hence. What's the takeaway from there? Don't fight the Jews in this world. Don't fight. Sit back, trust the plan, collect your treasures in heaven. Christianity is so subversive that puts Gentiles at a disadvantage to the tribal supremacist Judaism.
Yeah, yeah. And then they'll say things like, oh, well, Jesus was all for human rights. He was for the rights of children. They'll quote that famous passage where Jesus said, if anyone shall offend one of these little ones, it'll be better for him that he had a noose around his
millstone around the neck. Drown them, basically, if he causes the little ones to not believe in Jesus.
Right. But guess what? Guess what? There's 2 things in that passage that Christians completely overlook. First of all, when he says, if anyone shall offend, he's not talking about someone who beats a kid or sexually abuses them. No. The word there in the Greek simply means deceive or mislead. So Christ is saying, if anyone deceives one of these away from following me. So the focus was himself, not the kids. But here's an even bigger problem. Christ said, if anyone shall offend one of these who believe in me, one of these little ones who believes in me. In other words, I don't care about any kids that don't believe in me. I'm only concerned about the ones who believe in me so they can be suckers for me and do my bidding. So the very passage that they use to try to make it look like he's this person doesn't at all say what they think it says, or twist it to make it say.
Yeah, the Bible does teach anybody that causes children to stumble away from believing in Jesus have a millstone hung around their neck and drowned in the depths of the sea. Just like the Old Testament says, anybody that commits blasphemy, that doesn't want to bow down and worship and acknowledge the God of Israel that chose the Jews, stone them to death. Yeah. And then we got these Christians saying, we're trying to wake them up, deprogram them, snap them out of their spell, their Jewish hypnotized spell that they're under, and their biggest response is, you're an antichrist, you're a devil, you're a Jew, you reject the Jews just like, or you reject Jesus just like the Jews. No, I reject all of the Torah, all of Torah messianism. You believe in all of that. You've got far more in common with the Jews. Christianity is a sect of Judaism. I was just watching your video about how, and this isn't even controversial, only in like the fringe echo chambers online of anti-Jewish Christians, because the vast majority of Christians nowadays are the greatest allies to Jews and their greatest servants. They're filling the role of Esau, serving the elder, serving the younger.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Maimonides and top rabbis can brag about Christianity and Islam are preparing the world, and they're basically Noahide-esque religions, and they're preparing the world for the Messianic age, and it's part of God's divine plan, and these Christians don't want to hear it. What's been your experience with Christians trying to wake up, especially like anti-Jewish Christians? We can't even get to the pro-Jewish Christians because we're so contained in our echo chambers and suppressed by not just by ADL and YouTube and these people, but by the people that think they're fighting the Jews, are attacking us and telling us are wrong, doing the work, the bidding of the Jews, imposing the Jewish Messiah on the whole world.
It's virtually impossible, but I would never tell someone, don't even bother trying. No. Always try to reach these people. But you got to tailor your approach depending on what you're dealing with. You know, every person is different, and so you got to kind of feel them out and get an idea. You know, okay, I can't go down that road. Let me try this approach. You know what I mean? Don't ever get discouraged and just throw your arms up. Always try, because it's always going to be worth it. Even if you don't reach them now, you might say something that's going to click in the back of their head. They won't forget it. And then later they're going to hear something else, and they're going to remember what you said, and they're going to put it together. I've had people come to me years later and say, oh, my God, I don't believe it. You were right, you know. So
even people that like think that there might be people out there, you know, content creators that know what we're saying makes sense. They can see it. It's obvious that Christianity is controlled opposition, but they don't want to say it because they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to lose the tithing and the Christian support. Because Christianity is so embedded in our culture. It's like ubiquitous. It's people don't even recognize how absurd and how the whole world has been so Judaized through Christianity and Islam that, like, look at the whole opposition to Zionism or Jews. Like, what do you think of these so-called anti-Zionist pastors like E. Michael Jones or True News or Pastor Steven Anderson? What's your take on them?
Yeah, I mean, I can't see into a person's heart to really know what they're about. Some of them seem sincere. I guess you can never tell unless you actually sit down and talk with them. Like, for example, Tex Mars, you know who he was, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I got his book.
Yeah, he wrote a lot of good stuff, and I've interviewed him. Oh yeah, sure, I get that one.
He doesn't get it though. He goes, "Oh, the Jews think that Jesus is Satan or the serpent," and then they don't get it that it's a control. He can't see that it's a deception because he's deceived by the deception.
I had him on my show one time, and I only just addressed one particular issue. I says, "Well, Tex, I got to be honest with you." I says, I can't believe it anymore. I says, I see the Bible as part of the problem, not the solution. And I brought up the passage where, you know, Yahweh says, "Thou mayest charge usury to a Gentile, but not to a fellow Jew," you know. Mm-hmm. And all he could say was, you know, that one, I've prayed about that, and I have to admit, that one really bothers me. Oh, if it bothers you, then why can't you see there's something wrong? I felt so bad, though, because I really do think the guy was sincere. I don't think he was a shill. I don't think he was, you know...
No, I say that all the time. A lot of these people are sincere believers, and it's hard to blame them because this construct, this control, this dialectic antithesis construct has been around forever. They sincerely think that the Jews hate Jesus more than anything, and that he exposed them more than anybody. But meanwhile, you're not opposing the Jews when you're worshiping their Messiah and believing in all of their myths. What did you see my debate with E. Michael Jones?
That have actually come out.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't think I saw that one. No.
Have you had any debates with Christians about these things?
I have in the past, yeah, but I used to really get into it, and I think that's why I developed high blood pressure. I used to get so enraged. I just kind of got away from it because, number one, yeah, my blood pressure, but number two, most of them, I won't say all, certainly not all, but most of them I've just found to be so disingenuous. I wasn't actually debating with someone in many cases that really believed what they were selling. It was just, religion is a business for a lot of these people. And I found them to be so disingenuous, so filled with, hatred. And you can tell someone who's sincere. They're not going to fly off the handle and name call you and try to make you look bad to give the appearance that they're winning the argument. You know what I mean? That's when you don't bring anything to the table and you're just name calling, you're not sincere. You're not really out for truth. That's why I just gave it up. I don't even bother anymore. By the way, I did catch your interview with what's his name, Kevin Barrett there. And I interviewed him years ago myself. I thought he was sincere, but I don't know. I don't want to say he's not sincere, but he has an agenda, and his agenda is a Judaic one, just like the Christians have a Judaic agenda, right? Islam is just as Judaistic as Christianity, just from a different angle. But, well, you saw, I sent you those quotes, right, about praise for the Jews. And
can you share some of those? After I debated Kevin Barrett twice, and he's a Muslim, and we were debating if Islam is a controlled opposition and a deception, just like Christianity.
It absolutely is.
And then after that, Charles sent me a whole list of quotes from the Quran that very clearly show that that's exactly what it looks like, a controlled opposition. Can you share some of those top ones with us? I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if you do, or you just know them off the top of your head.
I don't have. Yeah. Plus, my eyesight's really gone south on me, so it wouldn't be something good on camera to see me with big goggles and magnifying glass. Yeah.
What about Christian identities? Because there's a lot of Christian identities out there. I feel like they're stopping us from making any progress of waking people up to the Christian deception and the Christian problem, because they're promoting so much nonsense that it just gets us nowhere. In the whole idea of it's not the real Jews that's the problem, it's the fake Jews that are the issue.
Well, not only nonsense, but their whole attitude, their whole disposition is as Jewish as you can get. I mean, they view themselves the way the Jews view themselves, right? They have adopted their exact Judeo-centric attitude, and it is Judeo-centric because they even admit that they're the true Jews. That's what Christian.
We're the real Jacob. We have the birthright. They're Edom. Like, how are we supposed to expose?
For all practical purposes, they are. I'll agree with them. Yes, you are. Stay away from me. I mean, they can claim to be against, the Ashkenazis or whatever. It doesn't matter. They have the same disposition, the same divisive attitude. How is that an improvement over what they're offering? It's the same thing.
Not to mention they're validating and pretending like the Jacob and Esau myth is real. And
sure. By the way, what do they call themselves now? The Black
Hebrew
Jews
Israelites. Yeah.
Same thing. The Black Israelites. Same thing. The same arrogance and the same nonsense, touting little fairy tales as reality. What really sickens me, though, is the way they pawn their God off as the arbiter of morality, when, again, that God is so incredibly, phenomenally immoral. I've been doing a series on YouTube, and it's going to keep going for several more videos, talking about how he advocates human sacrifice. I mean, how more devilish can you get than that? He advocates cannibalism. He advocates rape of young girls. I mean, it just goes on and on. I did a video on pedophilia, on polygamy. The Bible's supposed to be against polygamy, at least in the New Testament, right? Why did it take Yahweh so long to finally figure out that that was a wrong thing? Wow, man.
Yeah, you have done a lot of.
God never changes. What's that?
You've done a lot of excellent work. I highly suggest everybody sub to Christendom as well as Truth Hurts on Odysee to catch all of this great work. I'm really enjoying listening to it. There's not a lot of people out there who see Christianity for what it is that are exposing this stuff. Christianity is just like dominating. This is why America is such a slave to Israel, is because of Christianity.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how AIPAC gets away with what they do, and not only does nobody protest it, but you've got the bulk of the Christian world hailing it.
Right. It's the Word of God. Don't criticize the Torah. It's the Word of God. upholding it. Oh,
Right.
we have the new covenant, which includes the idea that you believe in the old covenant. So you believe that Jews were once elevated to a special chosen divine people status. And Paul even straight up says, do not boast because you are the branch, but they are the root. They support you. And yes, it's the same God that they worship. What about these idiots that try to say, Jesus wasn't a Jew. We don't worship a Jew. This isn't a Jewish religion.
Yeah.
What do you say to them?
He just went to the temple every Shabbat and actually preached in the temple and read from the scrolls, the Old Testament scrolls. He attended all of the feast days. He was circumcised. I mean,
Called rabbi.
Had nothing but good to say about Moses, right? In fact, even though he was condemning the Pharisees every other sentence, he actually said, because the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat, do as they say, but not as they do. So all the while he was so against them, he's telling everybody, follow what they say, because they sit in Moses' seat, as though Moses was this great, respectable. Moses was a mass-murdering psychopath is what he was. Wow, man. Jesus was a big fan of psychopaths. Abraham the pimp. I just did a video on that subject.
With his 90-year-old wife getting pregnant, if anybody believes that.
Or not even that. No. Earlier on, he prostituted out Sarah to the Pharaoh. Did you know this story?
Right. Didn't he do it twice? He prostituted. He
twice, and then his son Isaac did the same thing with the Philistine king himself.
But what would us evil, sinful, fallen goy do without this wonderful Jewish book and the Jewish God? We wouldn't know right from wrong. We would be chasing pigs in the forest. We would be, mass murdering and killing our children if it weren't for the Jews to be the light into the nations and tell us how to behave.
It's brought us so far forward.
It built Western civilization. There would be no Europeans. We wouldn't. This is the arguments we hear, and they're just all such nonsense.
Look at the story of Hosea. Yahweh told Hosea to go marry a prostitute. Why? Because Israel is unfaithful to me now, and I want you to understand how I feel. So get an unfaithful wife. So he goes and marries a prostitute, right? And you would think, well, maybe God had a divine plan. Something good came out of it. No! She winds up running around on him. He sells her into slavery. He gets so disgusted, but then later he's still in love with her, so he buys her back, but she still remains faithful to her dying day. Hey, 3 cheers for Yahweh. Yes, great moral lesson there for the kids. Wow, man.
Or something I get into a lot too is the blood magic. Like they want to talk about, the evil pagans, the pagans, which pagan is just a derogatory term for anybody that doesn't want to worship the God of the Jews. And
right.
the rabbis and the Christians both hate the pagans together, right? What do you say?
No, the true God, the God of love.
Yeah.
So blood rituals, that's satanic, but it's okay when Jesus does it. They can be cannibals and drink his blood and eat the crackers, eat his body, but blood magic, the idea that Christians believe, which is just a retelling of Yom Kippur and the idea of scapegoat, ritual, atonement, sacrifice. They believe in blood magic. God couldn't have destroyed the devil or just never created the devil or never let the devil into the Garden of Eden. No, he has to kill himself to forgive you.
The devil hung out in to tempt Eve with, right? He put it there. He actually, you talk about entrapment, right? But anyway, you got to love that Jesus is supposed to be the only way to salvation. You can't have salvation except through faith in Jesus. And yet, if you go back to the Garden of Eden story, after the fall, Yahweh put an angel to guard the tree of life, lest they eat from the tree and live. If they ate from that tree, supposedly, right, they would have had eternal life. So what the hell you need Jesus for? Just find the tree of life, take a bite of the fruit there, and you're all set, right? Jesus is the only way to forgiveness of sins. But we're told in the book of Ezekiel has a vision of an angel grabbing a hot coal out of a fire with some tongs. The angel apparently couldn't touch the coal, even though the angel is supposed to be a non-material being. But it was okay when it touched Ezekiel's tongue. He touched Ezekiel's tongue with it, and he said, your sins are now forgiven. Oh, so what do we need Jesus to get forgiveness of sins for? We just got to find this magic coal and have it touch our tongue, which won't hurt us apparently, but it would hurt the angel. He had to use the tongue to pick it up with.
Or God is outside of space and time, but he just loves the smell of burnt offerings, of the Holocaust smells.
Burning flesh. Yeah. It's a sweet savor unto the Lord.
So these Christians and their blood scapegoat atonement sacrifices, literally washed in the blood, cleansed with the blood, and they don't see how crazy all this looks. I remember in church, as early as I can remember, hearing, "Oh, this guy, I'm supposed to love this guy, and he loves me, and God killed him to save me from hell." I knew it was bullshit the first time I heard it. I said, "These people, this is a cult. These people are crazy. They're drinking the blood. What is going on here?"
Yeah. Unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you cannot have any life in you.
And then right after that, some Samaritans got up and left. And the disciples said,
"Oh, Lord, should we call fire down from heaven and devour them like Elijah did?" And Jesus says, "You don't know what manner of spirit you're of."
what the hell is he talking about? The whole Old Testament is filled with stories of Yahweh sending fire down from heaven and devouring anybody that so much looked at him funny, you know? Wow, man. But you got to love it, because Christ had no problem with them getting up and walking away. And then he says to the disciples, "How about you? Are you going to get up and leave too?" Oh, he really loved those Samaritans. Why didn't he call them back and say, "Hey, wait, let me explain what I meant by that. I didn't literally mean eat my flesh and blood." Maybe he did. That's certainly what the Catholic Church teaches, right? Transubstantiation. You know about that, right? They literally believe that when the priest blesses the wafer, the little magic wafer there, it turns into the body of Christ. And when they offer it up, it's a reenactment of Calvary, and that when you eat that piece of bread,
Even though it doesn't seem to have changed, you can send it to a lab and they'll still confirm that it's a piece of bread.
they believe that it has literally changed into his body, and you're eating his frickin' body. And when you drink the wine, you're drinking his blood.
That's so absolute clown world. But something that gets me is, how can these Christians get mad? Those synagogue of Satan Jews, they killed Jesus. They killed God. They killed my Savior. How stupid is that? Okay, number one, your God is killed by his own chosen people. What kind of God dies for also? And why are you so mad at the Jews when this is God's divine plan? You wouldn't be saved if he wasn't killed. It's such a ruse. It's such a ploy. And this is what this whole rejection never even happened. It's a mythical character, a mythical story. It's a trick to set him up as the Judas goat, as the controlled opposition. This was the plan since before the myth was created.
Let's put that thing to bed, actually, once and for all. This whole there's two places in the book of Revelation, chapter 2 and chapter 3, where it mentions those who say they are Jews and are not. Yeah, Christians love to quote from that, the so-called anti-Zionist Christians, but they don't even understand what the heck that means. According to Paul, and this became the accepted belief once Paul had emerged as the more dominant influencer in the Christian realm. Even the Jerusalem Christians were forced to go along with accepting Gentiles. They didn't want that initially. But anyways, Paul said when you become a Christian now, in Galatians, for example, he says you become children of Abraham by faith. You ever read that?
Yes, Paul says that all nations will be blessed through Abraham. That's why he brought in Ishmael and Esau with Christianity and later Islam.
In other words, you're an adopted son of God now because of faith, and so now you're Jewish. You become a Jew and you become a Christian.
Grafted in right on the back of the Jews, just grafted into them. Very sexual.
Right. But that's the context for understanding those two Revelation passages. Those who say they are Jews and are not. It's a synonym for the word Christian. Those who say they are Christians and are not, because you're supposed to be a Jew when you come to Christ now. You're, you know what I'm saying? That's really what it means.
Right. And the people, the Christian identity that want to say, oh, that verse is proof that they're actually Edom. They're really Gentiles pretending to be Jews. Yeah. It's all so preposterous. Jesus couldn't have said it a little clearer with a little bit more clarity there. Yeah. You really think that the real Jews just forgot who they were and allowed these Khazarians 1,000 years later just to steal their identity and cover all this up? It's pure nonsense. And all it is a distraction to take the focus off of the Old Testament as the problem. And it's blaming the fake Jews instead of the real Jews. It's taking them off the hook and then turning them into the victims. They benefit it both ways. They claim Khazarian theory is anti-Semitism. You're saying we're not real Jews, it's anti-Semitism. And then all these Q people and all these people online, all these Christians say, oh, it's not the real Jews that are bad, it's the fake Jews. Such a limited hangout. Layer
after layer of endless BS.
Layers,
really is.
Exactly.
But you got to love it, though, because Christ clearly stated himself.
What better authority to quote from as to how we view Gentiles, right?
He said, I came to sheep of the house of Israel. In other words, I didn't come to Gentiles.
When Jesus said,
Jesus said, I came only for the lost sheep of the house of Israel, right? He made it clear there that he didn't come for Gentiles. He only came for Jews, right? The lost sheep of the house of Israel. But to prove that even further, I think we talked about this before the show started. You know, in the book of Acts, where Paul is condemning Peter because he wouldn't eat with Jews. And so Peter was publicly humiliated. And then Peter claimed that God showed him a vision of unclean animals, and a call came from heaven telling him, to eat. And Peter said, "No, Lord, be far from me. I have never eaten anything common or unclean." And then he said, "God showed me through this dream that I am to accept Gentiles. They're not unclean anymore. They're now clean." Mm-hmm. If Jesus intended Gentiles to be accepted just like Jews, why did he have to be showed this later in a dream, long after Christ had supposedly floated back up to heaven, right? Mm-hmm. All the 3.5 years that Peter spent at Christ's knee learning from him, Christ never told Peter once that Gentiles were just as beloved, just as important as Jews, and were to be accepted into the Christian world just like the Jews were. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's preposterous. Any Gentile who thinks that Jesus is their man is an absolute fool. They don't even know what their book teaches. Jesus did not come for Gentiles, according to the way the Gospels are written. He didn't. By his own testimony and by that story of Peter. Peter would have known that Gentiles were supposed to be accepted. He wouldn't have had to have been humiliated by Paul over that matter, So the Bible fails the truth test at every conceivable level, not just on a few points or even a few major points. Every point, major and minor. There isn't one teaching that it has that does not have, massive contradiction over here or over there, sometimes multiple contradictions. It's nonsense. It's crap. It's as Jewish as you can get. And if you want to continue to follow it after you've heard these condemnations that you can't refute, well, then you're part of the problem.
Absolutely.
That's all there is to it.
Are you familiar with this verse? You may have seen me talking about it. Isaiah 11:10. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, that's the Messiah, which shall stand for a banner of the people. That's to it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. So it was the idea all along for the Gentiles to follow their Messiah. That right. This is the deception and the scam. Right. Jesus will be the stumbling block to the Jews. They will be blinded and they will be hardened and they kill their prophets, and but then they'll realize it at the end of time. In the actual verse in the Orthodox Jewish Bible says, "To him the Moshiach will the Goyim seek." And then they want to say, "Oh, the Jews hate Jesus."
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they really hate you believing in all their prophecies and worshiping their God and following their Messiah. It's such an obvious ancient controlled opposition dialectic. I don't see how anybody could not get it.
Yeah. Like I said, people have to reach a point where they're open to look skeptically at the Bible. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The minute they even just slightly open that door, just a little crack, it's over. It's a done deal. Mm-hmm. You can't deny that the book is not only full of crap, it's downright evil. You can't deny it. You just have to look at it critically. Be willing to do that. And, some people would say, well, if I do that, I might be in danger of hell. God will condemn me. Is that the kind of God you worship? You're going to be afraid that he's going to condemn you for putting him to the test? Wouldn't a loving father want his kids to put him to the test to see that he truly is loving? You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, put me to the test. You'll see I love you. My love will shine through even stronger, right? But if he's going to condemn you just for looking into something, why would you want to be on the side of a God like that to begin with? If you think the thing is real.
Oh, and the New Testament teaches you don't use your brain. Just have faith. It doesn't matter that you don't have evidence. Just love this guy, and he'll torture you forever if you don't. Like, is that not like mafia coercion?
When you put under scrutiny, they'll say, you're using your carnal mind. Mm-hmm. Well, it's the only mind I have, buddy, and too bad you didn't use yours. That's why you're in the mess you're in. That's why you fall for this baloney.
We all have free will. That's their magical answer for things. We have free will. Number one, you don't have free will on what you believe. You either believe something or you don't. You can lie to yourself. You can try to lie to God with it's not called Occam's razor. What is it called? Why am I not thinking of this term right now? When it's like, oh, you should believe because you're risking going to hell if you're wrong. What is that called? It's such a common thing. Someone will know it in the chat. I can't believe I've said this a million times, and I'm just brain farting on it. It'll come to me in a second. But Oh, you have free will. Believe in him or burn in hell. Is that really free will?
Yeah, yeah, unbelievable. But somebody, one of my listeners, wanted me to.
Pascal's wager. Pascal's wager. That's what it is.
Pascal's wager. That's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hate that. You always remember after the show's over. It always comes back to you.
Well, it's just so stupid. It's like Pascal's wager. So am I going to lie to God? I really don't believe. I think it's nonsense and a Jewish trick, but I'm going to lie to myself. I'm going to lie to everybody else, and I'm going to lie to God as a loophole that hope that he lets me in. It's so stupid.
It is. It is. If this God exists and he truly is loving, in spite of all the evil passages in that book that clearly reveal he's not loving, but whatever. If that God existed and he really was loving, he's not going to condemn you for putting his word to the test, for looking at it critically. And if you think he's the kind of God that would do that, why would you want to be in his kingdom? Why would you want to spend an eternity? I'd rather be lost for all eternity than spend an eternity with a thing like that. By the way, do they picture heaven as a place where you're going to be perpetually circled around his throne and singing his eternal praises nonstop day and night? Because that's the image we get in the book of Revelation multiple times, that the redeemed will sit forever and ever, day and night, around his throne singing his praises. Huh?
Yeah, it'll be great. You can just be a slave to the Jewish God for the rest of your life, just bowing down on your knees and groveling like a good little devoted minion. Not to mention, you talked about how your mother is a very serious Christian. So is mine. Think of all the unnecessary stress that they have, knowing that they're going to go to heaven, but their beloved sons aren't going to go because they don't believe.
Yeah. What it does to them. Oh, it's so disgusting.
It causes so much unnecessary misery.
Yeah. Oh, I could tell you so many stories. I saw some of the most conservative church members, the ones that everybody looked up to as pillars, and yet their kids, as soon as they turned 18, the daughter was pregnant and the son was off getting into drugs, and everybody's shocked, how did this happen? How could that be? It's easy how it happens. When you raise your kids so strict that you don't even trust them to go outside to take the mail in, the minute they turn 18, of course they're going to go off the deep end. The religion, far from raising kids to be decent, I'm not saying all kids do that, but all Christian kids.
It happens a lot.
A lot of them go that route.
And when you're taught that you can sin and all you got to do is believe in the blood and then you're forgiven, like that almost gives you a pass to sin. In fact, they even appeal to criminals and slaves and people who have done evil things. That's why the story's always, I was at the lowest point of my life. I was in prison. I was drinking. I was depressed. And I found Jesus and he saved me. It's like, it's such a crutch. It's an addiction. It's really Jesus junkies. Yep.
And then wait on your deathbed at the last minute and receive last communion, or when the last rites, when the priest comes in. Mm-hmm. I can go to heaven now, even though I was a rapist and a murderer and a thief and a
But that good person that just didn't believe in the Jewish prophecies, he's going to burn forever, and that's justice. That's morality. Please.
How about the reverse of that, which is just as bad, if not worse? You could be a decent person your whole life, care about others, share your house, to people on the streets, or share your money, try to help people that are down and out, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And you're not doing it because you want a reward. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and you like putting a smile on other people's faces. Yet, if you didn't believe in the great Jesus, you're going to hell, along with the murderers and the rapists and the thieves, right? That puts you on a par with them, even though you lived a decent life and did nothing but try to help others. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. To hell with that book. To hell with its God, the whole damn mess. Burn it.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Let's get a couple of these super chats, and then I want to get to them, and then we'll see if I have time for some more of my questions.
Really one of my listeners just wanted me to bring this up. This coming, Reawaken America tour. By the way, I just realized
in the Q-tards. Yeah.
I'll send you the link. I can't even read it now. My eyesight is so bad. But Reawaken, I just realized that the acronym for that is RAT. Reawaken America Tour. It's freaking RAT. Oh, don't they love playing games like that? But anyways, the gist of it is, sure, it's talking about the vax and how bad it's been. This is what lures people in, because anybody searching for truth knows that these vaccines are a monstrous killer, right? And so that's going to suck them right in, boy. And it's like a QAnon type thing, pro-Trump, and so the whole thing is going to be praise Israel, praise Trump, while yet exposing the vax. I'll send you the link to it later. Maybe you might want to do a whole
and praise Jesus. They're also blowing the shofar at those things. They got this girl Mel K. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's a half Israeli, just Judeo-Christian values and the Abrahamics, and they hate God and God wins. All of QAnon is basically just Kabbalah Christian controlled opposition. All of the Republican Party is basically just inside every Christian is a Jew. And then we got these these fringe people that are censored and suppressed, these so-called anti-Zionist Christians. What do you think about that term, anti-Zionist Christian?
Again, it's a complete misnomer, because as long as you believe in that book, that God, and anything in it, you are a Zionist.
God dwells in Zion. It says it in the Bible. In the word of God. They believe it. They're Zionist. They believe in Zionist as a biblical term with significance. They are Zionist.
My view of what we're heading for, I could be wrong, but everything seems to be pointing in this direction. I think that they're going to stage a fake mass conversion of Jews to Christianity.
Me too.
Right in Israel.
I've been saying that. And this is what's going to happen. They're going to... Go ahead.
Most of these so-called anti-Zionist Christians are going to jump right aboard. Oh, this is a movement of God.
Right.
And the book, their belief in that book has set them up for it.
This is what I think is going to happen. They're going to meet in the middle. There's going to be a rectification. And the Christians are going to start to become, they're going to, because they believe in the Trinity, Jesus is God, that's considered idol worship. It's not Noahide law compliant. So there's going to be
that's what I was fired over, by the way. That's the first step toward my enlightenment, was discovering that the Trinity was actually invented in the 4th century. It's not even in the freaking Bible.
Not even biblical at all.
Yeah, it isn't.
So it'll be so easy to change it at the end, and then the Jews can acknowledge, oh, Jesus actually was our secret Messiah all along, and we were blinded to it, and then the Christians will be like, yay, because the only problem the Christians have with the Jews is that they don't worship their Messiah. So fix that. We're just going to have all this Zionist New World Order, Messianic prophecies, and then the Christians will really be destroyed after they help them, give over the world to them, basically.
Yeah. Thanks, suckers.
Yeah, suckers.
Yeah. Jeez. Wow.
But no, that is how I've been covering that a lot. I just did a video the other day called Kabbalah Rabbis Reveal Jesus is a Deception. But see, I tricked the Christians, because these rabbis aren't calling Jesus a deception. They're saying that he's their secret Messiah, that he's been their Messiah all along.
All along, sure. Yeah. I mean, come on. Whenever they say they hate something, usually everything they say is the opposite of what it really is, right? So if they hate something, they love it. If they say they love something, they hate it. You got to believe the opposite.
Right. It's reverse psychology. They pretended to hate Jesus to trick their opposition into following it.
Right. I'll argue, and I might lose a lot of listeners, but I don't really care. I'm going to be doing a whole presentation on this, but I'll argue that that's the case with Hitler, too.
That he was controlled?
When they say they hate Hitler, they actually love him because
he's their messianic figure too, for sure. He helped create Israel.
He was the Trump of the 1940s.
I've gotten lots of flack for that too, even though I don't know 100% if he was controlled to like what level, or if he was just scapegoated.
I'll have to send you my notes. I got like 9 different sets of notes I put together on that. He was totally. Well, we won't go into that now. That's a whole long story. But yeah, if you want, I'll send you.
You should check some of my. I've done a few videos on that. Much of it based upon what I learned from Bjerknes's books. But I did one called "The Holocaust Prophecy." Several others too. Let's get
just the whole. What is it? The Havara Agreement. Yeah. I mean, come on, and he rolled a carpet out for them to establish the state of Israel.
Did you see the game, the so-called Nazi game, where they rounded up 6 Jews into camps and then sent them to Palestine? You haven't heard about that? The Nazi board game is what it's called.
Really?
It was literally round up 6 Jews and send them to Palestine. And all these laws about like don't let Jews marry with the non-Jews. The rabbis hated assimilation. They think the Holocaust saved them. They think it's the best thing that ever happened to them.
Oh yeah. Jabotinsky was all for that. Wow.
And they've always used anti-Semitism as a trick. That's why the anti-Semitism in Christianity is also a trick. It makes them more powerful. It gives them their victim status. It discredits us and makes us lose our moral high ground. Christians aren't condemning the Torah in the Jews because they're upholding what the Jews, their own books. They're defending them in essence.
Right. Right. Yeah.
All right, let's get these super chats because I'm sure some of them are going to be directed to you. Talk Shift says, in the name of Adam and the Henrik and of the Harry Vox, amen. Thank you. That's nice. And add in Charles there. Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask you, too. Giuliani, do you know if you have any relation to the famous Giuliani?
Oh, I always get asked that. They used to call me Mayor back in college.
Yeah.
I would hope not. He shamed the family name. It could be, though, because there's actually only about 700 Giuliani families in the entire world. So
I imagine it has to be somewhat connected. I'm not accusing
afraid
you of working with Giuliani or anything, obviously.
Yeah. It is the same spelling.
You Italians, you Giuliani Italians. Okay, we got See Through It All says, can you please chat with Charles about the Essenes, Qumran, Dead Sea Scrolls and their parallels with what we know now as Christian doctrine? Also ask him about the secret gospel of Mark and the truth about gay Jesus. Cheers.
On my YouTube channel, which probably is going to disappear soon because I was told I get one more warning. Anyway, I delve into that quite a bit, and I show that if, and it's a big if the Jesus character existed, and if the John the Baptist character existed, they were Essene trained. There's no question about it. The expressions they used, their teachings, there's even not so subtle references to the Essenes in the Gospels. I go into that in a lot of detail. They're actually mentioned in there. There's no question. When Christ condemned the Pharisees, for example, for what was it now? For not rescuing an animal on the Sabbath. It wasn't actually the Pharisees he was condemning. He was condemning the Essenes. He was Essene trained, that can clearly be shown, but later he broke away from them. And that was one of the points where he broke. And it wasn't the scribes he was talking. I mean, it wasn't the Pharisees, it was the scribes. The scribes were actually the Essenes. The Essenes, what did they do? Most of them at the Qumran settlement, they wrote the scrolls, 24/7. That's all they did is write these sacred scrolls. So they were called scribes. That's who Christ was condemning, not rescuing, because the Pharisees actually believed that you could rescue an animal that fell into a pit on the Sabbath. But not. This is one of the areas where the Christ character, whoever he was, had parted ways with the Essenes, was on that issue.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of, like, in Christ, the book, I think it's called The Christ Conspiracy, they speculate that he was a member, or that the Jesus story evolved out of the Essenes. That's kind of the way I see it happening. They were probably like Gnostic serpent worshippers. I think that's where it came from. Logos worshippers.
Yeah. But this is one of the biggest mysteries in the Christian world. What happened to Jesus during those missing years? He shows up, as a baby, and then the next thing you know, he's 12 years old, and then he disappears again, and he doesn't show up until he's like 27 or whatever. That is the precise pattern that Essenes followed. From the time you were an infant, you would go and be trained. At the age of 12, you were believed to been taught well enough so that they would send you to the temple to debate theology with the Pharisees. And if you passed that, if you could talk them in circles, then they would accept you back and you would receive your complete training now. They would keep you until you were in your mid to late 20s. And when you showed that you were finally ready for the world, you would be released. That's the pattern Christ's life story followed. By the way, the same thing with Josephus. If you read Josephus, he did the same thing. He debated theology in the temple with the Pharisees at about the same age. He was 14, and then he disappeared for a while and emerged later. He was Essene trained as well.
Also, have you heard that the Essenes had a group called the 12, similar to the 12 disciples?
Oh, really? No, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah,
surprised.
I've heard that one too.
The Essenes called themselves the Way.
The Way, which was what Christianity was called.
Christianity was called the Way. Yep. Yep.
And like we found in the Qumran scrolls, or maybe it's Nagamati, the War Scrolls, the Sons of Light and the Sons of Darkness. This is literally their end times Gog and Magog, where Edom and the Amalekites will be destroyed.
Right. Yeah.
And all of these were like Hellenistic Judaism, mystery religions, and different sects and that were competing and stuff. And when Paul came in and it was the apostle to the Gentiles, that's the version that we have today. And he turned it into a subversion targeting the Gentiles.
Yeah.
Okay, next super chat. Thank you. See through it all. Echo Harp says, I'm sorry?
Oh, I was just going to say another quick point about the Essenes. When Christ sent his disciples out on their first missionary journey, he said, when you go out and you are received into a home, he said, bless them as sons of light or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Who was Christ talking about there? The Christian church hadn't been established yet, and yet he's talking about people out there in the community where as they traveled, they would be taken in their homes and given a place to stay and breakfast in the morning. Those were Essenes. He called them sons of light. The Essenes refer to themselves as sons of light. So there's yet another reference, clear reference to the Essenes. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Echo Harp says, after all, a royal title basically just says that you understand the family business of killing people quite well. I'm not sure what you mean by royal title. Sorry, Echo Harp. Based says, would Charles debate E. Michael Jones? What do you think of him and his work?
I'm trying to remember. I think I have one of his books. He's a
Catholic.
Oh, he's an apologist. Yeah, a Catholic. Okay.
He's the most famous Christian anti-Semite in the world, I would say.
Oh, okay. Yes. That's right. Yeah, I know who he is now.
Check out my debate with him, and then you'll have a better answer if you would want to do it too.
I'd be open to it, sure, but like I said, I'll have to maybe run a few laps around the block, make sure my heart is up for it with my high blood pressure. When I get in those, I get so enraged. I try to control it. I don't want to be mean to someone I'm having a professional debate with, but inside my blood boils when I listen to the BS that they spew. And I have to honestly wonder, do they really believe it? I know there are sincere ones, but when you get to someone like that who's, well learned, I mean, come on.
I asked him if he's ever doubted Christianity in his life, and he said he's never doubted it. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, I find that hard to believe because even the most devout Christians that I've ever known, I had my moments of doubt. As a believer years ago, I remember one time I got so mad. I don't even remember what the heck happened now. But I remember shaking my fist. Why did you let this happen? Everybody has moments like that. So he's full of crap. I don't buy it.
See Through It All says, Jews always plot to kill their enemies. They just put this in a religious context to pretend it's someone else doing it. Yahweh is essentially the self-practicing Jew and the Jews as a whole, and their will expressed in the form of God. Yeah, their will expressed in the form of God. Right. They created him in their image, not the other way around. I don't know how it's not a dead giveaway, too. Oh, they're the one giving them the power and the authority to speak for the one true God of the universe, and not realize that you've been duped. Come on, people, please.
Like when he promises them world government, and I've seen them use that too. This is God. This is not us. We're not seeking power. God has given this to us. He wants us to rule over the nations.
Yep.
Jeez.
I Am Amalek says, my church has a youth ministry program. You go to church? I Am Amalek? That doesn't seem like it adds up. Zio Free says, appreciate Giuliani and you, AG. Thank you. Thank you, Zio Free. Sentinel says, can you please provide some spelling of the Egyptian Hyksos or Hexos?
Hyksos.
Hyksos, yes.
Yeah.
See Through It All says, I used to be afraid to see the truth about Christianity and the Jews because I was indoctrinated to believe I would go to hell even if I questioned anything.
Yep.
Yeah, they also teach you that anybody speaking against them is a demon, is Satan, the epitome of all evil. That's how much of a mental mousetrap it is. You're stuck in a mental prison.
Yeah, absolutely.
It says, it's by Jewish design that we are taught this. Christians must have blind faith in the Jewish God out of fear of hell. Charles is the man. Thank you, See Through It All. Variety Channel says, great show. What's Charles' opinion on Stoicism? I'm convinced after reading all the ancient works, the modern interpretation is purposely altered, ignoring the most crucial factors.
I'm not even sure what...
I've seen a lot of scholars speculate that they adopted a lot of Stoicism into the New Testament, and I wouldn't be surprised because it's an amalgamation of all types of stuff back then.
I was just going to say it's a hodgepodge. Christianity has been reinvented so many times. I mean, today's Christianity is not 100 years ago Christianity and 100 years before that. If you go back to the first century, Christianity was Judaism. That's all it was. And they worshipped in the temple. Peter, James, John, they all worshipped after, right? That's where they went to, quote, church. They didn't go to a Christian church. They worshipped in the temple. Other Christians worshipped in the synagogue. You look in the book of Acts, it says they met from Sabbath to Sabbath and preached in the synagogues. That's what Christianity was. It was a Jewish, and they were accepted by other Jews because, you know, you had different Jews who believed in Judas of Gamala as the Messiah. Some other Jews over here believed in, Judas Christus, whatever. You know, there were literally dozens and dozens of messianic figures. But as long as you still accepted Judaism, you were accepted. They might have disagreed with you on some points, you know. That's all Christianity was. It was just another sect, just like the Essenes. The Essenes didn't just live all over in the Qumran sect area of the Dead Sea. That's where the real extremists lived, right? But there were Essenes who lived out in the community. Just that Christ sent his disciples out on their first journey, right, and told them you can stay with the Essenes. And they worshipped in the temple as well. They might have had a lot of differences with the scribes and the Pharisees, but they still worshipped there. That's all Christianity was. It was Judaism, pure Judaism.
Judaism for the Gentiles, thanks to Paul, who never even knew Jesus.
Paul was the one who brought all of that whole different picture into the scene, much to the anger of Peter, James, and John. They didn't want it. They were fighting back and forth. You got to... I'll make sure I get my book to you. I thought I already sent it, but I'll send it again. You got to read the chapter in there on Paul. It's the second to the last chapter. He was a scoundrel, if ever there was. They all were. But Paul was just a complete...
He was a liar. He was a deceiver. He was all things to all people.
He said, crafty man that I am, I fooled you with my trickery. Can you imagine?
Saul the learned Pharisee. And then I'll expose like what rabbis secretly believe about Jesus. Like they think he's Satan, their esoteric secrets about Christianity, and they'll say, oh, we don't fall for Jewish fables. It's like, yeah, you do. What do you think all of Paul's letters are? It's all Jewish fables. You believe nothing. You dedicated your life to Jewish fables. And what you always hear too, tell me how much you hear this one when you Christians try to refute what we're saying. Oh, those aren't real Christians. That's not real Christianity. You know what I tell them? No Christianity is real. So yeah, there is no real Christianity.
Yeah. But you gotta love it because any group you talk to, their version is the real one.
Right. Yeah.
Come on.
A book so divinely inspired that nobody can agree on what it actually means, and it's completely open to wild different interpretations, and God is completely silent, hiding up in heaven, and doesn't want to clarify any of it, and you don't see any problems with any of this, please.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the book so colossally contradicts itself, there's no way you could get them all to agree. It was designed to create confusion. That's what Jews have always been about.
It was also designed to persecute the Jews, to have them be the villains, but also have them be central in the religion of the Gentiles, and then to go from the persecutors to the advocates. And we've seen that happen because there's both. Yeah. There's unquestionably anti-Jewish sentiment in the Bible, but there's also, superficially underneath, it's also they're the chosen people, and that they're the root, and that you're the branch, and that all of Israel will be saved, as Paul says, and salvation is of the Jews.
If you're saved, you're going to live in the New Jerusalem.
Tribal Defender says, what does Charles think about Mary being 12 to 14 when she was impregnated as a virgin? There's an article.
Yeah, Yahweh raped her.
There's an article about it.
Give consent, did she? Yahweh told her in a dream that she was already pregnant, and that holy thing in you is going to be called Emmanuel, which is a joke because where was Christ ever called Emmanuel? He's never called Emmanuel. Yeah. But in any case, Yahweh raped her. There was no consent there. He not only raped her, he raped a kid. Yeah.
Have you heard Bjerknes's theory on this? On the Immaculate Conception?
No. What does he say?
There's a Kabbalah doctrine that Satan or Samael rode Lilith, which is his the female version of Satan, on the serpent to breed with Eve to have Cain, and Cain is polluted with the serpent. So, and the rabbis believe that Jesus is the reincarnation of Esau, the reincarnation of Satan, Samael, and Cain.
Yeah.
So he thinks that the story is actually that Satan impregnated Eve, or I'm sorry, not Eve, Mary. And it does parallel with what the
seed of
Jews
the woman
believe.
back-
I'm sorry?
Yeah. Going back to the book of Genesis, you know, the seed of the woman. Yeah.
Yeah, spoiler alert, Adam and Eve is completely made up to begin with, so.
I did
And so is
a
Mary.
show one time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I did a show one time on how the Jews have historically labeled themselves as serpents. The serpents of the world, you know, that they bite us with their toxin, and they're proud of that.
Well, Jesus said, be wise as serpents also.
Yeah, there you go.
And they believe we're serpents. They believe that our souls emanate from the unclean, other evil, darkness, other side, that we're impure. And then the Christians adopt this. Oh, yes, we're fallen. We're evil. We need the blood in order to not burn in hell. Yeah.
All the damage done by that one book, it's mind-blowing.
See Through It All says, thank you for all the donations, See Through It All, too. He says, the biblical God of the Christians remained the tribal godhead of Jewry. Nietzsche lamented that Europeans had adopted an alien god and remained certain that Rome's conversion to the faith had spelled its ruin. Yeah, he got that absolutely right. Are you familiar with this one, too? Our God is your God, too, but he has chosen us.
That one. Sure, yep.
That's chapter about the holy book, the holy hook, actually.
Yeah,
is so good. He exposes how Christianity is a Trojan horse and a lot of the stuff we're talking about today. I've had him on a few times.
Yeah, that one, that's good.
Ziofree says, Adam, ask Giuliani if there are any rabbis he detests. I imagine all of them probably. Show him Anava, Reuven, Mizrachi, Sneerson, wonderful comments. Oh yeah, you know all about the supremacist genocidal rabbis, I'm sure.
I've often said that the bulk of the planning for world domination has come from the rabbinate. Absolutely.
I think that the inner circle of Kabbalah initiates with the oral law going back 2,000 years have always known that Christianity is a deception. And in order for this deception to work, they have to deceive the masses of Jews also, because they have to believe Jesus is really evil. And if they ever found out that, it's the Jews created it and gave it to the Gentiles, because a lot of Jews have suffered because of Christianity, but Judaism has ultimately benefited from it.
Right. Yeah. They use them as useful idiots every bit as much as Gentiles. Yeah.
Right. See Through It All says the priests rule through the invention of sin, the Antichrist Nietzsche. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Lisa Renison says Charles is an excellent guest. Hope to see him often. Thank you. Philadelphian. What's your accent? It's got to be East Coast something, right?
Bostonian.
Boston. Cool.
Yeah. Where we pack our cars and have it yard. We do talk like that.
Oh, you sound like Mark Wahlberg.
And then we take those missing R's and we don't waste them. We stick them at the end of pizza and soda.
Oh, and there was another one. I heard you say the word. What is it? Oh, it'll come to me. It's just a saw. You say "sar," kind of, right? You saw something. You saw. See Through It All says, in the same way, the raped and the rapists have had some history together. Many retards assume Christianity is somehow an integral part of our civilizations or even racial existence. Yeah, you see these, a lot of the Christian identity people that they say, Christianity is going to save the white race, or Christianity is we wouldn't have it built our civilization. What do you think? What do you say to people that make those claims?
Yeah, they built our civilization with the Inquisition and the Crusades and all the child sex scandals that got covered up, and they just moved the priest to another diocese so we could continue to do that there. Get out of here.
Eradicating all the pagan cultures and religions and myths and replacing it with the venerating the Jewish patriarchs.
Yeah. Granted, there have been some decent, pastors and ministers. Yeah, whatever. You're going to get that. There's been some decent Muslim leaders too, right? But that doesn't save the religion. That just means that those people are decent. There's been some decent Christians. My mother was one of them. Your mother was one of them. But I don't attribute Christianity to them being decent. They were decent people because that's who they were as individuals.
In spite of Christianity. All these things happen in spite of Christianity. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, a couple more here, and then I'll let you go. We're already over the time I said we'd go. Third Eye Perspective says, Christians always say God gave us free will, but they also say that he knew the end from the beginning and that everything is ordained by him. How can both be true at the same time? They can't. Yeah, prophecy can't work either unless you know everything that's going to happen. It's nonsense.
That's the whole idea behind predestination. Paul actually mentions that term. We are predestined, you know. And so there's this big debate as to whether that, you know, what the Bible actually teaches. Of course it does. It's in there. You're predestined. God has forechosen you.
Zio Free says,
well can there be?
I know there isn't.
Yeah.
And the idea that free will is more of like a natural it fits the natural explanation of the world, that there isn't a God if people can do whatever they want to do.
Right.
It fits that theory better. Zio Free says, ask Giuliani his opinion on Noahide laws. Is there a Noahide study guide? Have you researched Noahide laws?
Yeah, I don't know what he means by study guide.
I don't either. I think it's just a joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that they're going to turn Christianity to be Noahide compliant by getting rid of the Trinity. Yeah. I think there's a big shift to do that. You see Bart Ehrman, one of these top academics who is always saying, he has a big lecture series, How Jesus Became God. He's going to say it's those Gentiles skewed and messed with it and they'll scapegoat. Right. Also, this is something else that's important. How prevalent is this theory that the Romans created Christianity? Caesar's Messiah. Yeah. The Romans did it to subvert the Jews, but don't say that it was the Jews that did it to subvert the Romans and the Gentiles. That's anti-Semitic.
It's so easy to shoot that one down just on this basis alone. Whoever came up with Christianity had to be intimately familiar with Old Testament scriptures. The Romans had no frickin' clue, nor did they even care. The whole thing was dreamt up. You know who played a role in this, I'm convinced, is Josephus. Josephus helped to carry this on. There's even evidence that he might have been, if not Paul, he knew Paul. He was trained at the same time Paul was in the school of the Pharisees. So there was a lot of intimate connections there. I think when he was taken back to Rome, he was an insurrectionist himself, you know. He was rising up against the Romans. And then when he realized, oops, we're not going to overtake them, they're going to overtake us, then he turns on his own people and gives them some intelligence on how to take down. He wanted the Pharisees taken down anyway, right? So he acts like he's their friend. They take him back to Rome. Now he's there in the Roman palace, infiltrating his way in. And I think he played a big role in writing a lot of those New Testament passages and reinventing Christ. Christ was not originally intended, I don't think anyway. I don't think he was originally intended to be this nefarious, heavenly ascended figure. That developed later. He was just a failed insurrectionist or whatever. And they come up with this idea, hey, to keep this thing going, and we can recruit Gentiles and succor them and use them for future uprisings or whatever, you know, or at least pick their pockets, if nothing else. So let's turn this into a Gentile religion. Yeah, great idea, you know. I think Josephus played a big role in that.
Interesting. Lisa Renison says, Charles, do you agree with Adam that all the Abrahamic religions are a Jewish construct to enslave the nations?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Islam, Christianity, Judaism, the whole shebang.
Zio Free says, AGS Giuliani, if he's familiar with Archbishop Vigano, who's calling out Pope. Any comment, opinion?
Yeah, I've seen, I as far as I can tell, he seems pretty sincere. I commend him for standing up against a lot of the corruption, and his own church seems to not like him, but he's too big for them to excommunicate. So I just hope that he keeps going the path he's going and finally realizes the whole freaking thing is a scam. But in the meantime, I think he's accomplishing some good. So there's something to be said for that.
See Through It All says, in the Old Testament, there's no threat of eternal pain. Yahweh had no eternal prison, no everlasting fire. Yeah, they just used that fear on the Gentiles. His hatred ended at the grave. His revenge was satisfied when his enemy was dead. In the New Testament, death is not the end, but the beginning of punishment. Ants worshiping the anteater. Soul Trip says, no more news. I just fainted again. Soul Trip was really excited that you were coming on. A lot of people were. I would ask people, who should I have on for guests? And you were always one of the top names people suggesting. Oh, really? Do you have a backup channel? Want to check out his stuff? Zio Free asked if he's got Christendom on YouTube and Truth Hurts on Odysee, right?
Truth Hurts Radio, all one word.
Truth Hurts
And
Radio.
Hurts, H-E-R-T-Z, yeah. I haven't been posting so much on there lately, though. I've been mostly focusing on the on YouTube, but I got to get back over there because I got a lot of stuff I want to cover on there, too.
Nationalism.tv says, I post clips, just subscribe to my channel, why won't you? Okay. Warlike Laughter, cash for holy food. Okay, thank you, Warlike Laughter. And the last one, I am Amalek, says, a few seconds ago, I'm a crypto taking notes, that's why I go, and I still live with my parents who thinks I'm a Catholic and they want me to go to the same church. I'm a crypto taking notes. Oh, so you're a crypto Christian? Oh, what did I am Amalek say earlier?
Yeah, I forgot now. He had
something that I didn't understand. Oh, he said he goes to church. My church has a youth ministry program. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So your parents.
So I'm curious if he's questioning his faith, if he's just going along with it for his parents' sake. It sounds like.
Oh, I am Amalek is one of my best followers. He's in the chat every day
really?
donating.
Oh, okay, so that must be it. He doesn't want to upset his parents or whatever. Right. I can understand.
Right. Yeah, it's very difficult. There's a lot of forces that keep people in Christianity.
Yeah.
They're scared of being ostracized. They're scared of being attacked. You get a lot of flack for exposing this, and that's why there's not a lot of people doing it. It'd be a lot more. You'd have a lot more friends. You'd make a lot more money in donations if you towed the Jesus Christ is King line, like you see so many people doing.
Amish. If you leave the Amish faith, they banish you. Your own family will never speak to you again. I mean, that's disgusting.
Right.
So pathetic.
Okay, well, hour and 45. I don't want to go too long on this one. I'll have to have you come back on sometime, and we can dig deeper into any one of these topics. But I really appreciated having you on. I'm happy to finally have this conversation. Keep up the good work. Any parting words for us?
Just stay the hell as far away from the Bible as you can get. It's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, of their deceptions, and I think we've yet to see the worst of it. I think the worst is to come regarding that book. They're going to use that book to reel in a great many seemingly non-Zionist Christians. They're gonna suck a lot of them in with their propaganda because of that book.
Yeah, a Judeo-Christian temple cult has hijacked the world, dominated human history for the last 2,000 years. Half the planet believes in the God of Israel. And I don't think we should stay away from the book, though, and I think you'll agree. I think people should study it and expose it.
Absolutely.
And try to wake people up to it.
Right. Definitely. I think it's more powerful than their media and, all their other avenues of deception, the education system. It's the Bible. Yeah.
You've heard the Marcus Eli Ravage, right? He says that exactly.
Yes.
Right. You talk about our power of the media or entertainment, but you don't talk about he calls out Gentiles and says, you're so dumb that you haven't even accused us of the Christian deception. Right.
And isn't he the one also who said that we have you worshiping our how does he say it?
A Jewish.
Our political leaders are your masters. Our religious leaders are your gurus, or something like that. He just goes on boasting that we got you, worshiping a Jew. And was that him?
That's him. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Christian response is bury their head in their sand and say, la, 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 he's lying. They're lying. They hate Jesus. Right. He's boiling in excrement. They're so simple-minded they can't get that it's a deception. Jacob deceives Esau and Isaac. All right. I'm dropping his link to his YouTube and his Odysee in the chat, guys. Make sure to subscribe. What's the Odysee again? People are asking.
Truth Hurts Radio.
And the Hertz is Hertz.
Yeah, all one word. Truth Hurts Radio.
Okay. All right.
I'll send you the book again, Adam. Hopefully you'll get it this time. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, you have books too. Plug your books where people can find them. What are the titles?
You can get them on Amazon, but truthfully, the versions I have on my computer are a lot better than anything that's on Amazon. So if anybody wants, just drop me an email, truthhurtsradio@aol.com, and I'll send them to you. I got one, of course, on the Bible. It's called Can the Bible Be Trusted? I got another one called The New World Disorder, Piercing the Fog of 9/11, and then I have another one on looking at early Earth history, catastrophism, and what happened to the dinosaurs and ancient technology. It's pretty interesting. It's called An Alternative View of the Distant Past, if anybody wanted to read that. just drop me an email and I'll send the RTF version to you.
Cool. All right, well, everybody, appreciate you for watching. Thank you to my guest. I look forward to seeing what you all have to say in the comments on Odysee and on BitChute. Stay tuned. I'm having Vincent Bruno from StopNoahide.Law blogspot.com on Thursday to refute that lying gatekeeper, Derek Lambert from Myth Vision, who says Noahide laws is a conspiracy and that there's no Torah messianic conspiracy to dominate the world. We're going to refute that lying gatekeeper shekel grabber on YouTube. So stay tuned for that on Thursday. Thanks again, Charles. Thanks, everybody. And I will see you guys again very soon. Take care.